Hello everyone and welcome back to our NSG video series. We are very pleased to have Professor Shanker Satyanath with us today. Professor, thank you for joining us here.
Very much.
The professor holds PhD in political science from Columbia University and is professor of politics at New York University. His research interests are in international relations, political economy, and corporate policy. For the people who were not able to attend the session today, could you give us a short overview of the paper you just presented?
Yes. So the paper is about the relationship between connections and the disappearance or the killing of union leaders in Argentina in 1976. The question that we're trying to address is the following. There's a large literature that addresses how business people try to influence how economic policy is determined in a manner to maximize their financial earnings. However, one thing that's missing in this literature is the idea that violence is also a policy tool that is at the disposal of governments. And people have not studied in a systematic way whether business people use violence in a manner or try to manipulate the use of violence by the government in a manner such that their financial interests are served. Right? So we try to study this question in the context of Argentina in 1976 because we believe this is an interesting case, especially because the government claimed that its goal in terms of economic policy was to introduce efficient or technocratic policies when it came to power. Right? So in this paper we show, in this paper we are trying to explain the pattern of killings of union leaders in Argentina following the coup, and we find that these killings were significantly driven by network connections between business people and members of the government. And we find that the effect is huge, amounting to an over 100% increase in the number of union leaders killed, depending on whether you had a connection to the government or not. Right? And so we think that this is the first systematic study which shows that there's a correlation between connections and the deployment of violence by government. The paper also goes on to show how business people benefited from these killings. One of the results shown by the paper is that connected business people whose union leaders were killed by the regime subsequently had less strikes. And another result that we show in this paper is that connected business people who had union leaders killed experienced an increase in their ranking in terms of the market value of their firm. In other words, manipulating the policy tool of killing yielded financial benefits to connected people. So that's a brief summary of our results in this paper.
Thank you very much for this summary. Could you highlight some of the policy evaluations that you can deduct from these results?
I think the biggest policy implication is that often democracy is suspended in the name of getting rid of the inefficiencies of democracy in terms of the role of cronyism in democracies and how connections play a big role. I think what this paper suggests from a policy point of view is that one should be skeptical whenever a dictatorial regime comes in claiming to be an efficiency or a technocratic-based regime, because our results show that in one very prominent case like this, there was cronyism involved in the targeting of violence.
Thank you very much for that. Which implications do your results have on the importance of networks for businesses?
This has very important implications for networks for businesses, especially in one area, in that we have three different measures of network connections. One measure is of political connections, another is of business connections, that is overlapping board memberships, and the third is social connections, which is membership in the highly elite jockey club in Buenos Aires. Right? And we show how all these three measures of connections are connected to the ability to manipulate policy. Right? So I think an interesting ancillary result of this paper is that even if you have a social connection or a business connection, this might be very useful to you, aside from purely having a political connection with the powers that be in terms of manipulating policies to your benefit.
Thank you very much. That was Professor Shanker Satyanath from New York University. Thank you for tuning in and stay tuned for the next NGS video.
very much.
Thank you very much.